So welcome to the first webinar, the Nordic SoCap 2015. It's the second year we do this ongoing webinars leading up to SoCap 15, the great conference that will be on the 6th to 9th of October. And we have some really cool people here with us today who will speak about today's topic, who is really about local economy. And the co-founder of SoCap, Kevin Jones, is our main guest, and we also have some other interesting people here in the lineup. So maybe we can take a short introduction round here. Still tell briefly. Adil, can you hear us?
Yes. Okay. My name is Adil, and I'm from Copenhagen. I'm originally from Pakistan. I've come here 5 years ago, first in Sweden, working in social entrepreneurship projects within journalism, developing social development and cultural connection within multicultural communities, and be able to exchange knowledge from here, these developed countries, to underdeveloped for bringing open source culture to there. So that is my short intro.
Okay, great. And we have a long-time guest here with us from Vålerim as well. Eva-Lena, do you hear us? And would you say a few words about what you are doing?
Yes, hello. I live in a small village at the Arctic Circle in Vålerim in Sweden, and the village is a lot of people are very committed to develop things that matter for the village and do it together. So we understand that we are good at crowdsourcing and also doing a lot of things to try to strengthen the local economy. So in the small village with 800 people, there are 60 small companies, and about 10% of them is broad-owned, like an open source companies with different things that develop the village.
Yeah. Great. We'll come back to that later. And you can really give a picture there from when you look at the Nordics and Sweden particularly, and the connection to SoCap. Federico, are you with us? I think you're in Toronto now. We haven't seen you yet, but hopefully you can hear us. Great.
Can everyone hear me and the camera?
Yeah, perfect.
It's a pleasure to meet everyone. So as I was doing a little self-introduction earlier, my name is Federico, so you guys can call me Fred in short. I live in Toronto. I was born in Hong Kong, so I come from a kind of a different nationality and background. Just being Asian, I see a lot of social challenges as I grew up from there. I moved to Canada about 22 years ago, so I literally grew up in Canada. So coming from that different background, I started off in the corporate sector. I basically studied and from a technical background, and moving from the corporate field into the social sector later in my career. And I've been a social entrepreneur for the past 5 to 6 years now. And it's about 2 years now that I launched the African project in helping the community there to train the youth. I have always been focused on the youth sector, trying to nurture the next generation, as I find that nowadays with how the economy is shifting and the speed of it, it's very competitive for the next generation now to be employed, to actually understand the actual skills they need to come into the workforce, or to even think about their career, how to plan ahead for their future, and so forth. So kind of feeling that as my own generation and towards the next generation, I want to put more effort in that aspect. Not necessarily to say to solve the unemployment issue in that sense, but how do we be more innovative and creative to address that need, as right now technology really has been advancing the speed of change, as well as basically amplifying the actual problems now. So that's my focus, and my mission just recently has shifted more towards the African context, as that was a synergy in meeting my colleague. So now that's my main focus. So and again, I shared in chat my project is called Lab Institute. So I'll keep that in short, and I'll pass the mic to the next person. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think we can go to Per in Denmark, and then we'll leave the word to Kevin, who is the main guest of today. So what are you up to, Per? Unmute your microphone.
You can hear now?
Yes, perfect.
No, I'm just joking. Well, I will repeat myself a little bit again, but do it shorter. I'm working in an organization called Social Entrepreneurs in Denmark, and we are trying to actually build a more formal organization or infrastructure on social entrepreneurship and social enterprises in Denmark, which is not really existing. Quite some enterprises and quite some entrepreneurs have been emerging within the last 5 to 10 years, but there's no really formal organization. So we try to offer a sort of a national network where people can at least join and start to share knowledge, and maybe also in the long term have trades together. So this is all in the beginning, and we are run basically by volunteer work, and something like 2,000 or 3,000 volunteer hours a year. So the effort is mostly information, organizing events, and taking part in projects, for example, the EU project that we do with Sweden, Finland, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
Great, and we will come back to that later and see. And I think most of the people here in the Hangout are really working with the local economy, which is the focus of today's topic. And welcome, Kevin. You are the co-founder and SoCap, and maybe you can start with telling about the background of the SoCap conference and the story behind that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Bert-Ola. I appreciate the people who are watching and the people in the room. Thank you for asking me. SoCap was a response to a problem that we needed to solve. SoCap is social capital markets. It's now become the largest, and has been for the last several years, the largest impact investing in social enterprise conference in the world. It's in San Francisco. It's in October 6 through 9 this year. And we are looking at a pretty astonishing number, at maybe 2,700 people this year. So 500 more people than last year or so on current trend. And we're in our 8th year. But we started as a response to a problem. We had one of the first of these impact funds that at the time were called social venture funds. And it was, it's private equity venture capital for good. And there was a new thing saying you could do risk capital, and you would have mission insurance. The mission would survive the exit, and but the risk capital for growth was really needed. There were social enterprises arising, and the founder would have to work 2 or 3 years gathering together 5 to 12 angels to raise $2 or $3 million to grow, and get really distracted from the mission in order to round that up. And all these angels have their own dreams, especially if it's about changing the world. So you're like, it's not managing cats; it's managing cats who all have dreams. So we wanted to solve that problem, and right entrepreneurs who could grow, who could and preserve their mission. And so as we were doing that, there were 3 or 4 other funds arising at the same time. and we're all running into the same problem. It's the way people thought about their money, the dominant myth of capital. That really became clear when one of our companies that we were going to invest in, a fair trade coffee company, was pitching to Bill Gates. And he said, look, I have two pockets. Okay, I have one pocket I want to put all the money in the world in, and I put it there, and then I put some money over here to do good. You're saying there's a space in the middle, and that I can think like an investor and act like a donor. I hate that idea. You have to leave. And we had two other billionaires that we pitched, no one of his wealth, who also said you have to leave, and they acted like the idea physically hurt them. Two of them held their solar plexus, one of them held their head, and they said, I can't be around this idea. Just get out. I don't want to discuss it. It was a threat to the way they thought, and so in my previous business life, I would have just changed my product to what people buy. And I thought, no, I want these people to change the way they think about things. So we created SoCap as a way to get them into the tent without having to listen to, each one of a series of early hand-waving visionary entrepreneurs who said there was a path that they could go through and it might be a dead end. But we created it in the form of an asset class fund. So that just means, in typical terms, you go from fixed income to real estate to public equity to venture to risk equity, beyond seed capital. It's kind of a fan. It's how it's often pictured. We did the same thing from venture philanthropy, where you give and then they invest. The European Venture Philanthropy Group is one of the best ones, but Acumen Fund, New Profit were there. And then we assembled the nonprofit debt funds like Root Capital that created the financial instruments that allowed fair trade to exist. And so that was nonprofit financial innovators. What Root Capital did, I'll go a little bit into that spectrum, but then the goal was to make it safe for them to come into the fold. Root Capital, when the first fair trade coffee companies were getting contracts from, say, Green Mountain Coffee for a place in Nicaragua, and they would be able to give people a living wage, or at least a higher wage, and people would pay for that value, they got no money to put the crops in the ground. And so Root Capital turned that contract with Green Mountain Coffee, which is one of the earliest buyers of fair trade, and turned it into a receivable, a note, and then they sold it, and that's how people got money to create fair trade. So financial innovation by nonprofits. Some of the things around microfinance are the same. You went from giving to investing, but you also could give up a lot of return, to funds like Good Capital, our fund, Good Capital Social Enterprise Expansion Fund. And we were one of those who told people, look, we will take a discount to financial return to go for catalytic impact if we need to. And people signed off on that. It was kind of unique. And then to funds that said, no, we're high impact, high return. But that spectrum made it safe for people to come in to see that there was a market at the intersection of money and meaning. Each of us selling individually couldn't get people to take us seriously. When they saw that spectrum, it became, come into a marketplace and I can have choices. And so it took off. We went from 600 people the first year. We thought it was going to be really hard. It was right after 2000. It was in 2008, 4 weeks after Lehman Brothers went under. And but then we turned out to be a flight to hope. And so suddenly we had looking at 200 people and a failure, and suddenly we had 600 people. So we created it, and it became the biggest conference in the world. But recently I've realized that venture capital works in this space, and we've got fair trade companies doing really well, companies focused on literacy, but that we weren't doing enough for us in the United States. SoCap is more internationally focused in investing than it is in the U.S. And it's also easier for American impact investors to invest in Africans than African Americans. So now I'm working on investing in marginalized communities in the U.S. in places where venture capital doesn't work, and that's where I'm working with the neighborhood economics effort. And we have another conference about that in November in Cincinnati.
Yeah, because our webinar is just starting.
What's that?
The webinar, if you also have time, then I'll give you the link to join there.
Okay, I'm not sure what you just said or why.
Just wait a second. I'll give you.
Okay, well, should I go on, Bert-Ola, or I'm not sure what he's saying. So there are lots of ways. One of the things, we just got our first employee. We're focused on Cincinnati, which is a state in the Midwest of the United States, not a huge city, but they're really interested in it, and it's a place where there was a big bout of racial unrest 12 years ago, and unlike a lot of cities where that happened and they just walled up, you know, black folks and white folks started talking to each other, and so they're interested in what we're doing. And we're setting up a tiered set of initiatives to create loans to uncollateralized African American entrepreneurs, working with Kiva Zip, working with banks through our Community Reinvestment Act, working through an African American led business-to-business credit union that needs a loan officer, because historically African Americans in the U.S. don't trust banks, so they don't have collateral, and so we need to solve that, because they store the wealth in cousins, in a way, to think about it. That's, you know, they store it through networks rather than in their own storehouse. And so we're working on that problem. We think it's replicable if we get it fixed or solved in a model that works in Cincinnati. We're working with a network of resilient small towns and cities where we think that could work. And we have 5 communities involved so far. Tiny rural Burnsville, North Carolina, which sells its crops into Asheville, North Carolina, which is a larger city, still, you know, about 100,000, but it's the farm-to-table link. Allentown, Pennsylvania, where there's a unique data sharing going on that is, I'll go into in a little bit, and then Cincinnati are the hubs of that. So I can stop if there are questions, but that's, we're working where venture capital doesn't work, to accelerate the flow of capital to neighborhoods, and we're starting in Cincinnati as our anchor with our first employee who got hired. He'll be what's called a community quarterback, and he'll be finding the entrepreneurs who need the loans, being a navigator to the mentors who can help the entrepreneurs, being a connector to the community groups and faith groups, and then raising funds to keep the other things going.
If you look back on the last 8 years in impact investing, what do you see? What are the big trends?
Yeah, the big. I think now that people know it can exist, and you know, we have now firms coming into SoCap like Bain and BlackRock, and you know, Goldman Sachs wants to be in, but we have to draw the line somewhere. There's more demand. People think you can invest for good. That's new. They used to think you give for good and you invest for yourself. That changes who you are in the world to do that. You're actually investing for us and for yourself. So your relationship to your own storehouse, where you put things, and the commons has changed. So I think people are only now trying to figure out how to put that in context, because they've acted their way into a new way of thinking, and now they're trying to, you know, we're working with them to try to put that in context. We think in the United States that can happen more easily on a local level. You can think about the abstract things by asset classes and things, or you can think about investing in neighborhoods in my community. You know, sometimes it's neighborhoods I don't go to, neighborhoods where immigrants live, neighborhoods where affluent white folks don't go into neighborhoods where poor black folks live. So we're investing and trying to create the bridges around that. We find the faith community is a really good ally who wants to help people understand what's the nature of who my neighbor is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so maybe any comments? We see also that Epi is joining in now, and we can continue because there is some similarities between the crowdsourcing world and the market for money and meaning, and also you were part of the Lapland conference last year. So do we have any questions so far from what Kevin has said?
I do have a question.
Yeah, Frederick.
So, hey, Kevin, it's I guess more of a out of curiosity of my own question. I am not sure. I guess how everyone's familiar with the Canadian demographic, but I see that I guess so far in my previous journey, in comparison, the economy in the social sector for impact investing has been much slower in comparison to the U.S. Or the Europe, or even interest of investment in the Canadian sense. Is it something of the policy or regulation that the Canadian government doesn't have the proper structure to support this, or is it more, I guess, less interest or appeal to the investor to look at the money flowing in the economy in Canada? I guess maybe you can give me some insight on this.
Yeah, there was a lot of echo, but I think you were asking, is it the investor mindset or a lack of policy that's causing it to be slower? Yeah, I think there's a huge cognitive shift. You know, to invest with impact, you're giving up something, or you're willing to give up something. Sometimes you can invest at market rate and do good. Right now, in the U.S., financial inclusion is one of those sectors where you can invest not to make money off the poor, but to use technology to reduce the cost of being poor, and that's often things around transactions. That if you're unbanked, for example, if somebody sends you and you're unbanked and you don't have good credit cards, etc., $40 to pay your cable bill, it can cost you $11 to take that money out, put it in a form that you can pay the bill, and then send it in. So there are people saying, hey, I can do that for $2. It's still high risk, but there's $9 more in a poor person's pocket. So it's a real market opportunity that the banks aren't going for, because they're often the ones that have these exorbitant fees. But lots of times there's a cost, but it's just a new way of thinking, because we are dethroning the dominant myth of capital. That's what we're doing. In the U.S., when we set up our nonprofit system, they bought a particular belief that the market was a force of nature. It was a social Darwinist idea, and therefore you did good outside the market in philanthropy, and the market was, they blessed as a raging beast, and all the externalities of the environment that are there it really come from that decision by the robber barons that was enshrined into law. So we have to go back and change the way we've been thinking about capital. I think you go back to why it hurt the billionaires' heads to be around the idea. If the idea is physically painful, then changing from that idea takes a while. I think we're in maybe the second inning of a long ball game. That's a baseball metaphor. I realize I'm doing that, but we're in the early stages of a long race, and you have to think differently if you're going to do this, and that's how it has to be. So there are enough proof points to get there, but it's really getting over generational habits of selfishness that are enshrined inside investment to invest in all of us. The good thing about our growth, if you will, is climate change. Climate change means it's not a fad. It's coming. So we need to invest in all of us, because, to use a Dutch analogy, one of the things they say is, if the dike fails, it fails on the land of the rich man and the poor man. And I think we're all facing that kind of thing. There is a collective impact we're all facing. So I think it will, as we link climate change to impact investing, I think.
Okay.
Long enough answer, huh?
That's fine. We have Epi joining in here. I think you are in Singapore. Can you hear us?
Hey guys, am I late here or what?
No.
I'm on time here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're coming.
Hey everyone.
It's the new technology world is very dynamic. So you need to be.
All right.
Yeah. So I think it fits very well to, the market in the intersection of money, meaning, and crowdsourcing, and that would be interesting to hear. Of course, for people who don't know you, what is Crowdsourcing Week and what is coming up soon in Europe?
Well, our goal has been always focused on making sure that the we are really unleashing the opportunities that exist today among 1% and distribute those to the 99%. And for us, we're not just looking at the money as one part of the crowd capital, but we're looking at many other resources. And so in terms of crowdsourcing, I always try to simplify it in terms of we all have in common the passions, talents, skills, and tangible resources, and we're able to put it on a proper way with a technology that will enable us. We'll be able to really see a much better, efficient world, where in the same time behaviors start to change and empowering people. So I think we're in the beginning of where this journey is going to lead us. I think most exciting thing is that what really gets me going is that when I really wake up and see an email when people tell me like thank you for doing this, and to me that really, it's encouraging that I think a lot of people want to see this change, the change that really it's going to result, I think, to a world with a much better meaning, and crowdsourcing to us. When we look at all parts of crowdsourcing, we look at the how we can really bring this closer to decision makers, because without bringing this closer to decision makers and bring this as a real benefit and not as a threat, we'll be able to really accelerate the process and get it done faster. But I think in terms of where things are heading, of course, there are going to be some bumpy roads because there's still a lot of resistance. And the reason why there's a lot of resistance is because there's old business models tied into the vast interest, and I think those will not go away that easy. So we're just beginning here. So.
Mm-hmm. And tell about the upcoming conference in Brussels. What will be the main focus this year?
So we always had like themes before for our main conferences beside the summits. But when we look at this conference, we look at the some main aspects of what really makes a big impact in terms of Europe. And I think the areas that we wanted to focus this time is the area where, of course, financing goes without saying, but there's something that we always look at that we want to do, and this time we're doing it, is the governance, mobility, and energy, especially energy sector. And so we're just beginning to really develop a really good, solid energy content that I think for years to come will be really seeing some amazing outcome by doing some amazing projects on the energy sector. And I think this is something that we really want to lay out as a foundation of the future events that we're going to do in Europe and also in the global stage.
Awesome. What do you see there, Kevin, from SoCap and crowdfunding, crowdsourcing content? I think you have sharing economy there as well.
Yeah.
Probably this year.
Yeah, we do, and finally the regulations around the Jobs Act are coming through in the U.S., which is the heart of the federal crowdfunding kinds of things. But there are some states. Oregon is a real leader, one of our states, in doing state-level crowdfunding. So there's equity crowdfunding for people who are what they call unaccredited investors, just the average folks. Accredited investors need a couple $1 million in assets. So that's starting to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of innovation. There'll be a lot of failure, a lot of risk, a lot of aspirational things that aren't well checked out, but it's really starting to happen. I think the more deep it gets, the more local it gets. I think it's really working well. We're working a lot with Kiva Zip, which are doing these $5,000 loans to uncollateralized entrepreneurs around the country, and the people do it at $25 a piece. And their default rate is so low because you have 50 to 100 people who are really caring about that entrepreneur, that they're going to shop at that body shop or that flower shop, that banks are getting around them and doubling down on those loans. So we have this thing called the Community Reinvestment Act, which means that banks are supposed to invest in poor communities, do loans there. And they're doing it alongside Kiva Zip. So a $5,000 loan becomes a $10,000 loan, but they're putting up, in Louisville, Kentucky's case, $250,000. In Baltimore's case, $600,000. and in Philadelphia's case, 400,000. We're going to be doing that in Cincinnati. I think that's really transformative because it also gets people in affluent neighborhoods to be investing in entrepreneurs in poor neighborhoods and creating and bridging those ties. And in the U.S., the big thing we need to work on, I think, is black-white racial relations as well as immigrant relations. But I think the black-white racial relations are more fragile. And so we're also helping people transform from being donors to the needy to lenders to peers. So that's transforming that relationship and that how you look at that neighborhood. So I think it's the deeper it gets, the more people are involved, the lower risk it is, and the more socially and culturally transformative it is. And so people are acting in a new way and acting in a new way of thinking more easily locally than when they look at all their assets. So I think it's really got huge potential. And so Kiva Zip is really, I think, which is just becoming part of Kiva, is a vehicle that mobilizes people toward entrepreneurs that have been vetted by someone. And I think it's got several pieces of infrastructure that we like, and we're going to double down around it through our neighborhood economics effort.
Where are you in the process right now around this?
Well, we just got approval for our first employee to lead that effort in Cincinnati, and we have we're working with Kiva to set up that program, and then you have to find one bank in a town. It can't be like Wells Fargo. We care about your town. It has to be a local bank. It wants to do the CRA, the thing where you invest in poor neighborhoods well, and so we're in our initial conversations with those banks. So we're hiring, we're forging the partnerships, and we're getting our new guy trained in the Kiva Zip program.
And going back to you, made together with Volerim and other people the last year conference in Sweden. And what's your takeaway from that, looking from a crowdsourcing perspective on that activity?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, about Volerim and the event last year. What was your takeaway from that?
I think it's, to me, it's like, communities like this, they are efficient in terms of the resources that they put into it, being on the tangible or non-tangible. But I think one of the things that we need, the communities need to be open up more into the more like a global level in terms of the trying to really work together with the other sustainable communities as well. I think that's another key. I think for major parties that these type of communities need to really have kind of like embassies from one another in these places, and really start to see like what type of things don't have and what type of things they have to really work with communities around the world. And that's where really the real power begins in terms of also other big guys taking notes. Otherwise, if all these communities are going to work in silos, okay, nothing really big will happen. So that's my take on they have everything except that they need to have that connection. So how are they going to make that connection? Like Impact Hub. What really makes the hub good at it? Because now you can connect with many different hubs all around the world on these platforms, and you can really share things. I think this is what needs to be done in these types of sustainable communities. That's where you're going to really start to see like a real change, because from there you're going to start seeing like all different type of initiatives happening, all different type of crowdfunding initiatives happening. That, I think, that will really make a really big difference. So I think very close to it, but needs more push towards it. And I think that has to come from the ground up. So.
You also had a quite big interest, what I understand, in the digital currencies. What do you see there around crowdsourcing and alternative currencies coming up?
Well, I mean, crowd currencies. It is something that I'm really looking into it, and not just in terms of the blockchains and the light, not just in terms of the bitcoins and litecoins or dog coins or whatever coins, but I'm looking more in terms of like the blockchains. I'm looking in terms of more like decentralized applications being developed in these type of on the Ethereum platforms. How this type of currency can play out. How also the currency is like I call it reputation currencies, but those will become much more powerful than ever before. Like you saw it like just a day or two. Mark Zuckerberg announced that they're working on a dislike button. I think the reason why they work for so long with a dislike button is because they know that can really turn off a lot of people. So it's not easy to really create a really good big reputation outside of the social networks. So this type of reputation currency that I'm talking about, they come more from the blend of your digital and physical connections, and this is so important. I think that's where the crowd economy plays a really big role to it, because think about for a moment, today your reputation that exists on Airbnb, it's totally on silo, and you can't take it to some other Airbnb type of platform. Neither you cannot take that to the Uber, neither you can't take that to the freelancer. So everything is just like really siloed, right? So I think the future will be where you're going to have a platform where pretty much is going to really harmonize that, and that will be your really number one a reputation currency that's going to really be able to really create that rapport and do things around being a trade or whatever. So I think in terms of crowd currencies, I think those are the one part of it, and I think I'm not an expert on that particular domain, but I'm really seeing a lot of those things. I'm a really big fan of what Ethereum is doing in that space, and I think we're going to see a lot of innovation built out of it. So.
I think maybe Kevin have a comment here on SoCap, and I know at least a few years back you had a big content around alternative currencies. What's happening around SoCap and that field?
We're watching it, and we have small things. We're waiting for it to become more significant. In the U.S., alternative currencies are fringe-like things without a lot of liquidity. There are some things where there's like business-to-business credit clearing up in Vermont that is getting more folks involved. I think it makes a lot of sense. I just haven't seen a wholesale migration to it yet, and I haven't seen a model that's being replicated. I don't think it's a scalable thing, but I think it's a replicable thing in terms of a model. I think there needs to be trust on both sides, and the stuff I've seen, actually in the U.S. now is not big, but I'm really encouraged by things around the blockchain that could make that happen. And I'm intrigued by Ethereum as well, and some of the things that are coming out in New Zealand with the Inspiral effort. But we like to see things a little further into easily actionable reality before we go further. I think it's the conceptual stuff. It's been conceptual for too damn long, and I'd like to see it become a little bigger before I personally focus on it. It's this $0 billion industry that just isn't here yet,
Mm-hmm. We have other people coming in here, so we have Matt and we have Emmanuel, so maybe you would like to come in and say what you are doing, and we can take some feedback also on what Epi and Kevin has said, so you can prepare something there. Matt, do you want do you hear us first of all?
Hi everyone, I do hear you. Unfortunately, I'm in a restaurant hotel lobby in between meetings, so I probably cannot speak much because I have people all around me, but I just wanted to say hello. I'm co-founder of California Global Innovation Exchange.
Yes, that was exciting.
Sorry?
Yeah, that was exciting. You disappeared a little bit there, but please continue.
Okay. So, not sure where I left off, but I'm co-founder of California.
Can you put a link to the California Global Innovation Exchange in the chat so we can see it?
Sure. Okay. So why don't I type in the chat just because it's a little bit difficult to speak in this environment that I'm in. So I apologize for that.
Okay, but great. We can go into this an upcoming webinar. It sounds exciting there. We have also Emmanuel. I don't know if where you are right now. Can you hear us? Emmanuel?
Yeah.
Great. Where are you?
I'm also speaking from Ghana. I think I was invited for this webinar by Federico, a co-founder for Think Life Institute, and I love listening to this session for now. And I've been in touch with Bert-Ola for some time, and I hope as I follow up with the discussion in future webinars, I'll be able to contribute more. Thank you.
Okay, but tell about your project and what you are doing.
Fine, thank you very much. We're working on the social entrepreneurship work here in Africa, and as I said, a collaboration with some organizations here in Africa, which we co-founded with Federico in Canada. What we're doing is that we are building the capacity of the young entrepreneurs as to seeing their vision through their passion and how they can identify their goals, and then be able to also solve societal problems in a way of also making impact. But then our model most of the times is linked to passion acceleration programs, such that these ones can achieve their goals where their passion lies. So we've been training young people here in Africa, as well as also engaging in African youth in philanthropy work. I think one of the platforms that we're trying to define philanthropy which involves social impact investment. So we've been working alongside with young adults also who are already in the field and try to build collaboration. So now I would say that our key area has to do with the young people when it comes to social investment. So that's what we've been working on in Africa, specifically in Ghana.
Do you see some crowdfunding coming up there, some practice around crowdfunding? Do the people in the communities try to use crowdfunding?
Yes, the community, I think that most of the areas here in Africa has been resort to traditional way of funding. The crowdfunding is new that we are trying to introduce, especially to involve the young people when it comes to fundraising or even bring money or anything to start their project. So it's a new model here in the part of Africa, and then we went on to train the young people to understand it and be able to be part of that and also use that. So far, I've been using that crowdfunding for some time before even the creation of the Think Life Institute. But then with understanding new model how to work, especially when you are working with the outside world, not only the local base, where you can work with other people, when you can get other people to know what you're doing, that's the level which we are. So we are working on partnerships and try to build a community of givers, and then wherever everybody is able to give us they want and also being able to trace their impact. So we're working to also make sure we have a data portal of the impact of people, of what they are going to do, so that in as much as people give, they can track whatever the resource has been used for and then be able to continue to give. So these are the areas that we are trying to also involve in our giving.
Do you work with my friends at Farmerland?
Can you
They're
take
in
it
Ghana?
again? What did you say?
Do you work with Farmerline? My friend Aloysius Satan, his crew in Ghana.
Farmerline. Do you hear Farmerline? You can share a link there. Kevin, you know the story of Farmerline. Can you say what they are doing?
Sure. They are working with farmers in Ghana and actually 4 other countries now. And one of their big innovations was to realize that big data didn't work when 80% of the people, the farmers in the developing world, couldn't read, and especially couldn't read English. And so they're sending out timely crop advisories to, say, tilapia farmers taking their crops to market in 11 different indigenous languages in Ghana, and similar things in other West African countries, you know, the languages that work in Burkina Faso or whatever. And then they're also finding that UNICEF is finding disaster relief far more effective using Farmerline. They want to know where are the bodies after a disaster, and they've reduced the time to start recovery from 6 days to 6 hours by sending out voice requests to people in their own language, rather than after a disaster finding the person in your village who can read English. And the errors have gone down by 50%. So they know, where to send the ambulances and all the other disaster kinds of things. So the real innovation was going away from the trend to big data to staying in voice, because the customers couldn't read. And then the aid agencies, development agencies who also pay for this stuff get all the impact metrics that they want, because people make more money using Farmerline. They get their fish to market with fewer killed, all that kind of thing. So it's not an oppressive metric. It's a tool that makes the entrepreneur better. They just won the Village Capital Award there for West Africa. And they've been growing. I've been working with him about 3 years now. He's a remarkable entrepreneur and a great team based in Ghana. I'm going to have to leave. This is great to be here. I've got to run on. Epi and other folks are here. Thank you so much for including me.
Yeah, we will continue
in San Francisco, and then we have our neighborhood economics event if you're in the United States, again, November 17th through 18th in Cincinnati. Thank you.
Great. See you.
Cheers, Kevin.
Yeah. So it was So any feedback so far on the questions? We have Adil and Per, and Eva-Lena is raising her hand, I think.
Yeah, we have been a part of both SoCap and the Crowdsourcing Week and learned a lot. So when the Crowdsourcing Week Arctic Circle Summit was in this March, we were named as an analog crowdsourcing in Volderim, and I think that is precisely was right, because the challenge is to prioritize the time to both do the local development, because it takes so much physical time, to do also connect the dots with global others globally. But I totally agree, Epi, that if we will change the system and the society, we need to connect the dots. But I have a question for both Epi and Kevin, but I will put it to you, Epi. What do you see as the biggest challenge the next few years in this field?
Biggest challenge in what sense?
To do the change, make it happen.
Well, I think in terms of the communities, the sustainable communities that are all around the world, you really don't have to convince them. You just have to really connect the dots. I think that's something that is needed, and then be part of the ecosystem on ecosystems like ours, and ecosystem of the impact and all these different ecosystems. That really creates really different results. So in the end of the day, I always say, you don't want to really do what the others are doing. You want to do probably something different than no one is doing. I think you have have that opportunity to do something different and not to look for what everybody's doing. And of course, the challenge is that nothing comes easy. You need to really make that dent, and you need to really push it. You have to really, you can't give up that easy, because it's it's just the beginning of the journey. If I have given up on crowdsourcing when I came to Asia 3 years ago, when no one understood what I was talking about it, the crowdsourcing week would never happen. But I pushed it further and further, and I still keep pushing further and further, and I will never stop. I will never stop pushing. So the idea is like, here's where the journey is. Here's where the things are. Here's where the things are. The journey it's always bumpy. You always have to really enjoy that, and the destination will come. But the destination is not what the focus should be. I think the journey should be the focus, and there's lots of opportunities that could be created around. So,
what do you see ahead? What will you do? You spoke about energy in the conference. Can you give a little bit overview of the program? What you have in Brazil?
Well, I mean, look, Ray Kurzweil. I read this from a blog post from Peter Diamandis that he shared like the other week or something, where he is putting the bets where the world in 2050 we will not need to really produce electricity anymore. We can get that from the sun itself. Elon Musk, he talks about 100% that getting from the United States. So Elon Musk, he's very modest, and he's putting that like half of it that can be produced from the sun. I think the energy sector really needs to be really taken into an area where we need to think about what goes into this, how much wastage goes into the energy sector, and you can't imagine like how much wastage that goes to it and how much money that goes behind it that is going to the centralization, to centralized organization. The other day, I just read an article where pretty much in UK alone, for every liter that is being bought, a liter of gas that is being bought, 60% of that goes to taxation. So again, we need to really find new ways to the energy. I think we have lots of ways to look at it. It's just a matter of time. There's some really great innovators out there. If you look at, for example, the charts of where crowdsourcing world is today, we are in the world of where between like innovators and early adopters. What does this tells you is that there's a lot more room for innovators to embark in this journey of crowdsourcing. I think that's what we're going to see the next 2 years. Big innovators coming into it and really applying crowdsourcing, and in the same time, we're seeing a really big new citizens come to the crowdsourcing world, new citizens of internet. That will really make a really big change, where we're going to start to see some other innovation in the energy sector, and that's what I'm really excited about it.
If you look at Asia right now in crowdsourcing, what's happening there? If you travel around the world with crowdsourcing week, what do you see in this journey?
Well, Asia is very focused on a financing part of the crowdsourcing. If you look at, for example, like the numbers, Asia already surpassed Europe in terms of how much of that money has been raised through a crowdfunding. Of course, half of that coming from China alone. But Asia has a really big potential in terms of the financing part. I don't think Asia will really embrace the parts of the crowdsourcing in terms of the other countries itself. But Asia really has a really big crowd, so I think people will participate, but we will not be able to really see as many of platforms, coming out of Asia, as we will see a lot of participation coming from Asia. So there's a lot of room for people from Asia to be part of it.
So why don't you have as many platforms coming up there? What's the reason for that? I mean, they have a big crowd, but
well, I think it's the culture, of course, the society is it's very incentive driven. Even when it comes to crowdfunding, like donation crowdfunding, is kind of like non-existent here, okay, compared to the Western world. And the question is, I always like to put the question why to it. Why it's not as big as in US or as big as in Europe. And the answer is because the society is different. Not that they're not good; they're nice people and all that, but they're just different. So I think when it comes to the equity crowdfunding, when it comes to peer-to-peer lending, I think that has a really lot of room for growth because it's very incentive focused. Reward-driven has not really picked up the way how it picks up in the United States or in Western markets, but that also has a lot of room to grow. Just the model of the bringing reward-driven type of campaigns and the products to the market. When that really gets solved, because that's still a problem. If you look at more than 50% of crowdfunding campaigns on a reward-driven, especially on a hardware, they fail because they fail to deliver the product. Is because they it's not easy to really get the product out on time when you talk about really making like a massively produced products. So that's one thing that I see. Taiwan, for example, the country of Taiwan is really working on it, where they are really trying to really encourage the entrepreneurs through the crowdfunding means to really bring this type of innovation on a hardware world. But yeah, so this is where things are in Asia. But yeah, there's a lot of room to grow in terms of the financing part. In terms of the sharing economy, more like a cars, I think just today you see like a Didi Kwai made another alliance with the Lyft, which is the platform out of the United States. Transportation is a really big thing. Here, Grab Taxi. There's a Grab Taxi out of Asia here, but let's see. I really want to see how the things are really have not played out well here, where in some Western market had played out much better.
We can leave some. Do you have any questions here in the panel? Per or Adil or Eva-Lena. Otherwise, I have one.
You mentioned the blockchain earlier, Epi. How do you see that as a way to promote crowdsourcing, or maybe also to be able to promote alternative currencies much more?
I'm hearing myself here. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, good. So when I look at chains, I look at it as an enabler to the crowd economy, and I think you really don't need a platform to really control your data. That's where the things that will become really interesting, and I think you will start to see a lot of that innovation happening, which is going to really enable people to do a lot more and not being tied with the platforms. I mean, think about it. In the end, when a platform really becomes really big, it becomes also centralization too. Airbnb shuts it down, you're out of the business. freelancer shuts it down, you're out of business. So that should not work. That should not work. But I think when you take these type of decentralized models and you create it, that then there's no platform can shut it down. I think that this is what I like to see happening, and this is just the beginning. And I'm really looking at this very closely. But I think there's a lot of room. I can't really predict anything in these terms, but I think it is just a great enabler to innovation that we're going to see, where is going to enable decentralization, and that's to me the exciting part.
Adil has some question here.
Yes, just to pick up on this same thought which Epi was mentioning about, I'm like thinking about now that with new form of currencies, with blockchain and bitcoins and other things, are we not also trying to create a new form of spending of those money? Because in terms of social capital, we are trying to shift from traditional societies to future societies. And in those future societies, we are still trying to find out the same way of methods of transactions in a new way. And in order to actually bypass this thing, we are trying to then find out transforming the whole society or small in terms of small communities. Like in Volerium example, which is analog crowdsourcing. It takes about a lot of time to physically make a difference around the communities, not just in a very far-flung areas, but also within very high cities like Amsterdam, Berlin, or Copenhagen as well. It requires a lot of physical work and volunteering work as well. Are we not trying to find out new form of exchange methods that basically corresponds to what Epi was talking about, the mindset, and making the whole meaning of money completely, and different, and how to be able to make that tangible, that new meaning of money using by the society for the society.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I really want to really make sure that when people talk about this, the end of the dollar is the end of euro. I really don't like to go that route. I think we are not experts to really know what will go. I think a lot of times that we use the currencies because there's a really big perception behind this. Like for example, I always say the three most recognized symbols in the world are: number one is cross, number two is the Coca-Cola, and number three is the dollar sign. And so when you look at that, yes, of course, you'll see dollar everywhere, and every single transaction, international or whatever transaction we talk in US dollar terms. And it's because of the perception, it's because of the branding part of it, because of the recognition that we have as a society. But now we have a whole new society that is going to look at things differently. And this is where I'm really interested to really see what this reputation currency is going to play out, and how really people are really going to use these reputation currencies to do things together. So really going build based on the old models, where pretty much if I'm really doing something for you and you do it, and you're doing something for me, why should we really pay this transaction instead of you just digging it and taking it from there, and you don't pay those fees? Why are we paying transaction for every single thing that we do? This is one really big question. With the technologies that we have today, we're still paying fees. We're paying bank fees. We're paying PayPal fees. We're paying all kinds of fees, for our money. And I think this is where we are. I like to really start to see, because the store credit, why can't we have our own credit, and that credit be used against your credit, and vice versa? So I think, let the innovation play that natural role, and let's not really stop it in some places where they stop it, but let that innovation flow happen, and see how that's going to play out. And yes, of course, there's bad things that can happen, anytime, but I think we should not be afraid of it. Innovation doesn't happen without making mistakes. The light bulb that we take for granted, that went through like hundreds of different iterations until really it was created a perfect light bulb. And this is just a light bulb. So think about this. We're talking about a real innovation that fundamentally will change the society's future. I think this is just the beginning. So let it play it out. Let it play out and let it flow.
Any feedback there? Any question from the crowd? Okay. I think we have another question there. What will you do after Crowdsourcing Week Europe? What is your plan for the future?
Well, I mean, for me, Crowdsourcing Week, yeah, we do events, and for us, like, we really want to really bring this universal mindset. The mindset that is really today it's the super early adopters, and just by people coming to the conference, that does not necessarily mean you being an adopter. What I mean being an adopter is like you immersing yourself in this space, and that's it. I go to so many conferences, and I go back again to those conferences, and I ask the same question, and very few people really raise their hands that they have progressed in this space. It's kind of like, asking like, how the Facebook looks like. Yeah, I like to try it, but I never tried it. Go back again. How the Facebook looks like. Yeah, I like to try it, but I never tried it. Well, you never know what you're going to get out of Facebook unless you really try it. And same thing with Twitter, and same thing with LinkedIn. Now, why don't you do the same thing that you do on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter? Why don't you do that and immerse yourself in the world of the crowd economy? So in the end of the day, you can go to the conference day and night. You can go to so many different conferences, but if you don't immerse in it, you're not really getting the real value. That's it.
The real crowd. That's
yeah, exactly. It's like in order for you to really get that experience, to really see that, okay, I am really getting the real deal here. I'm really getting the right value that I'm spending time here, or I'm putting the project here, or whatever, is by you doing it. And it's amazing the way how I use it. It's amazing that there's very, very few people use this crowd economy to being for work, or being for taking a car, or there's so many things that you can do, especially for startups. So, so many startups, they spend countless of hours and money on things just to get things up and running on a website. And they really don't really look at what they can do with the time that they spend, the money they spend, if they're going to really take that and put it into like a 99 Designs or Freelancer or Elancer, all that, and let that happening much faster and get better creative juice and get it done in real time. So again, it's a mindset. For some people it takes longer. That's why you have MBAs. MBAs they are for people who really they need to go to MBA. They need to really go for a year or two to learn things and to really boost their psychological effect, that they think that they're really getting something out of it, and then they get that certification. Then they feel like they're ready for something, where someone does not even need to go to get that MBA. And so again, today you have so many opportunities, and just by you going to conference, it's not. So for me, conference is only one thing, and it's not. You can't scale that. So what we're working on things where, where we can get this closer to every person out there around the world. And so we're going to really use the means of the internet to scale that, more like on an e-learning side of it. So.
Any more question there? I think Adil has a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to build on the last thought that was said was about like, have you thought about like creating some unconferences where the audience there is no spectator events. Everybody is somewhat participant and somewhat being able to involve in it. Or you have some kind of a plan of doing certain crowd unconferences?
Well, I mean, we started with a conference. We are not a conference business. We are really content creators. We really want to really bring this closer to the people. So, there's a lot of room for people who really want to do those things in a conference, and I encourage everyone out there. But for us, we can only do certain things. But for us, what's important to really focus on, what we can do that we can make the best of the impact, and that's what we need to do. The rest, if people really want to collaborate, I always encourage them to come back to us. We have buttons where people can really bring crowdsourcing week to their countries or collaborate in many different ways. But again, in our case, we just really need to really focus on things that we can deliver, and whatever we can help out there, we can help. On conferences, it's a good idea. If you want to do it, we'll love to help you out, and you can do that. So.
And you did a crowd chat just I think it was yesterday or the other day. It's you're working in a very modern way there around digital media. That's at least my feeling.
I mean, the crowd chat that we had is we did with the author of the book called Shift. For those of you who have not read Shift, the book from Hayden, it's really a great book, because what it does is it really breaks down into the pieces in terms of the what do we need to do in terms of to really see this progress, and of course there's as I said, there's a lot of resistance out there that that it's happening from the government, from the policymakers. I think what this crowd chat did, was it yesterday? Was it yesterday, the day before? Is that we were able to really get closer to what Hayden has been working on as far as what this really makes as an engine of growth, and so he is in the same frequency as I am, and I really have enjoyed that crowd chat, which I really encourage you to really join our next crowd chat. I think it's in 2 weeks again. We typically do it 3 or 4 crowd chats before our major conference, and this one is our second one, and then we have one more before we have a European conference on October 19th. So.
Great. Any more questions? We can share the crowd chat there on the event page later, and it will be great to follow. I have done it a few times, and it's really a nice opportunity to pre-connect before the conference. Denmark or Toronto or Volirim or Emmanuel in Africa, in Ghana. Okay, I think we have Frederico.
So I can go and sleep, or no? Okay.
I guess more of just a thought may not be applicable. Maybe I'll ask away anyways. With your experience with crowdsourcing, crowdfunding in particular, have you or how would you see this model apply in the African context? As I know Emmanuel probably can give more insight, but from my understanding so far, financing in Africa is still in a very traditional way, and crowdfunding, in particular, it's a very open model which breaks. I wasn't using the word break, but it's something that is different from the traditional network. So, how do you see the Africans can work with this model in that local context to help them raise the finances necessary with their own projects, especially visibility and credibility is much lower in those geo regions, and crowdfunding, from my experience in Canada, there's a lot of support needed prior to actually launching a very successful campaign. So how would, I guess maybe every one of you can give me some context and to help me understand this as well.
Is this a question to me?
Yeah, I think so. In general, how to get it going there in Africa.
Well, so in Africa, I think, I am not familiar with Africa. As a matter of fact, we have a summit in a pipeline the next year in Africa, which I'm really excited about it, and we'll be announcing that very soon. But I think in terms of the microfinancing, which, first of all, I haven't seen any good crowdfunding model that came out of Africa at the moment yet. But in terms of the microfinancing like Kiva part, I think that really played a big role, and I contributed many times to those type of financing towards the farmers and other smaller businesses through the crowdfunding through this microfinancing channel. I think the way how I look at crowdfunding is like, if you really want to really know how transparent the countries is, you can just look at the crowdfunding, how big of the crowdfunding is, and you can pretty much tell the transparency level of the countries. That's the bottom line. I think you can really look at it very closely. I mean, it tells you a lot. And I always said, I remember 2 years ago we did a summit in Berlin, and there was this VC who was like, trying to like impress everybody that's a VC and say like, this is going to be like a big scam and whatever. About it. I was like, okay, it's fine. Tell me how big of the scam could be. And he was like, he just couldn't give me the number. I said, okay, are you done with your scam part? He said, yes. Okay, let me tell you something. Could this be bigger than a Madoff scam? Madoff, who really screwed up billions of dollars from people in New York. And he didn't really have an answer. And it cannot be as big a scam as the Madoff scam. So, because it's built on transparency. So if you look for some, Africa is not as a transparent continent, and that's where you don't see it. And same thing also in some other places. So I think there's that's how you can really relate and see what it is. But I think more and more this type of movement comes around in the different regions, and when we do our summit in Africa, we would like to really bring the benefit of like what is it for, not just for the small boys, but also for the big boys as well. I think that's what we want to really bring it to the Africa, because I think in the end, if the big boys really don't change, it becomes really harder and harder. And I think our job is to really bring this closer to the big boys, and then let it see how it plays. And yeah, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how I see the crowdfunding based on transparency level. So,
any more questions there? Okay, we have an event page there on Facebook, and you can continue the conversation and questions there. And I hope we can come back again there to Crowdsourcing Week on the 19th to 23rd. I think it's the dates. And there will be surely a group of people going there, so we hope we can meet some of you here in the chat and other people following there. So thanks very much for today. And you must be late. You're in Singapore, by the way.
I'm in Singapore next week. I'll start my road trip for the next 3 months, and my first stop is Europe, and then pretty much almost in every continent. Then I'll be back in December here in Singapore. So really looking forward. I think this time European Conference has a big promise. The promise is that we're establishing few areas that we're going to focus on, that we really bring the top decision makers closer and closer to this type of mindset, and let's see what comes out. I'm really excited about it, and I think a lot of other people who come to our conference are really getting excited about this opportunity that is being taken further in the European agenda.
So thank you very much for being here, and looking forward to meet soon again.
Nice meeting you all. Thank you. Thanks, Bert-Ola.
Happy evening, day, or wherever you are. Bye-bye. See you. Bye.